Hello and welcome to Data Planet. I'm Emma Davis, and today's guest is Rick Weithas, 17-year veteran of product marketing for private equity-backed SaaS companies. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Thank you. Really excited. Appreciate it.
All right, so give us a quick education on the main function of a product marketer.
Yeah, and I think that's been the biggest change that I've seen in private equity SaaS. And I think the misnomer is a lot of people see product marketing as messaging or sales enablement. And really, product marketing sits at the core of the go-to-market function for a software. And it needs to understand the market needs, the customer needs, kind of that voice of the market, what's driving urgency, understand the product, what are you developing, how does it kind of solve those challenges, and then be an integral part of that go to market, the sales and marketing motion to kind of leverage those two things. And that's the way I really see effective product marketing sitting within an organization.
And so you brought up, I mentioned that you specialize in private equity-backed SaaS.
I
So,
do.
and you mentioned that challenge of defining product marketing
Mhm.
properly within private equity backed SaaS. Can you talk a little bit about like what is different about working in private equity versus, an
Mhm.
independently owned or bootstrapped SaaS
Yeah.
company?
Yeah, and I think the biggest difference is the hyper focus on immediate results. And, in traditional software, if it's public, you're looking at kind of just that slow and steady increase in revenue, kind of market position. VC, you might go real strong initially. And private equity is all about building a motion that will show very steady solid growth in a transaction time period, so 4 or 5 years. So there's a very, very tight time frame of we need to show results, we need to show that investment, and so it puts that hyper focus on what I would call that short term kind of profit growth, kind of context together.
Yeah. And I in my experience, private equity, no offense to private equity people out there, has sort of a reputation for being numbers only,
Mhm.
maybe not so much caring about the people because, they have a job to do.
Mhm.
Their job is to ensure that return on investment for the investors of the organization. So, um, I'm trying to gauge or guess if, as a product marketer, it's like a match made in heaven. Product like effective product marketing and private equity, they go hand in hand, or if the introduction of private equity creates new friction. So can you talk a little bit about your experience? I don't know
Mhm.
if your experience has been working at a company that then gets acquired or if you prefer to like come into a company already backed by private equity.
Sure. Yeah, and in my career, I've worked with large public company tech. I've worked with, smaller VC startup, and I would say the one thing with private equity that it does bring is a level of hyper focused discipline, and that can sometimes, marketing folks don't always like discipline, right? They kind of like the creativity aspect of it, and so there's tension there. There's no doubt. When you look at the private equity, they want short term results, but you also need to be looking at long term. And I think a lot of the larger tech focuses on the long term, the market position, the brand, and the short term focus of private equity is around we need to deliver quarter over quarter. We can't have a lot of waste. But what you see is a hyper focus on discipline. Now, if it's taken too far and you push too much into the short term, pri- uh, basically it becomes nothing more than a sales enablement. Just delivering the stuff, and you're an extension of sales. And I
Mhm.
think the good teams take the discipline and the short term focus that private equity pushes, but is able to incorporate the longer term aspects as well, the longer term positioning, the competitive. And, that's taking the short term private equity, but bringing in the longer term. And that's where you're able to flex that hyper focus with the private equity is driving with the
Mhm.
longer term focus that the company needs, and that I think balances the marketing department historically well.
Okay. All right. And you mentioned
Mhm.
product marketing is not part of sales enablement. But then I'm curious, there's also still a relationship with product marketing and go to market,
Yeah.
actual revenue generation. So where does that accountability stop for I mean, marketing overall, but obviously you specifically are a product marketing guru. So,
Yeah.
talk to me about that a little bit.
Sure, and the sales enablement plays in it, but it is really an aspect of the sales motion. And if you think of product marketing, it's starting with understanding the market and the customer, the positioning. What are we going to market with? And I've seen, and I've been a victim of it too, where we'll go out and we push a narrative that's like, hey, we have a new product launch. You need to train salespeople. They need the data sheets. They need the sales slides and all that. And you go out. And that is the focus on the product. It's a focus on the company's motion, and it misses the customer aspect of it. And so the good product marketing is going to look at the positioning, the messaging, are we dropping the salespeople in at the right spot? And it's not just about enablement. It's really that's one aspect of it, but it's in that sales motion piece and the messaging piece, but it's a part of a broader go-to-market function. And that's where I think a lot of people see it as, hey, they need the collateral and they need the training done, but they're
Mhm.
missing all the things around what's the buyer behavior. Those things will drive interest, but what's the urgency in the deal that's going to close it? And those are the aspects that go well beyond just sales enablement.
And so what are the KPIs that you care about in product marketing?
Yeah, at the end of the day, and I think what you're seeing it now is product marketing drives pipeline. I think traditionally it had been, oh, demand gen drives, and you measure product marketing on how many trainings you did and how much collateral you did. And that's real old school thinking. And I think that the new view is that the product marketing team, effective product marketing team, is getting the intel from the market. They're putting sales into deals at the right moment, not at, hey, we need platform or we need revenue growth on a new product. It's about creating compelling demand gen campaigns that are going to be sticky. And the demand gen is an important. It's the outbound push function of marketing and drives a lot of leads, but it really is driven by the product marketing team. And if you don't have tight alignment there, it's not going to be effective. So I take the product marketing, I look at win rates. How effective are the sales teams moving through deals?
Mm.
How is the pipeline performing? I think it's a lot of the marketing metrics that people think about, the pipeline, the deal health, the leads, but it's incorporating how effective the sales teams are being as well. I like to think of, the most important factor that I see really is close no decision. For me,
Mm.
that's indicative of the discovery wasn't right. Something's happening where we've created a lot of interest with the product, but we're not aligned around urgency. What's happening at the customer, whether it be they're in a geography, the risk to the businesses has changed. I mean, we're seeing in the macro, all the things happening, in the Middle East, and is that driving supply chain? That can have an immediate impact on companies that are, looking at supply chain or looking at growth. And a good product marketing team is going to have their pulse on it. They're going to drop salespeople into the deal where it makes sense, where it's compelling. And otherwise, you have tire kickers, and that's not good pipeline. That's not pipeline that's going to convert.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I find is most critical for success in driving pipeline in any sort of results focused marketing function
Hmm.
for a SaaS company that has any sort of latency in their sales cycle is understanding that latency and being able to map cause and effect. So you could have people ending at, close no decision, and they are the result of something that you did 6 months ago or 3 months ago, and making sure that you maintain the threads of, you know, we don't need to run things unchanged for a year to make sure that we're sort of isolating, cause and effect, but we do need to be able to track things on a cohort basis. So that's where I see a lot of sort of pipeline
Hmm.
breakdown is people then becoming too reactive on the marketing front, trying to make changes before they even understand the impact of what they're doing. I'm curious, because you have this focus even within product marketing on pipeline, where else have you seen pipeline break down? You talked about this, like, the discovery not being informed or urgent enough. What are some of the other things you've seen? I mean, not go wrong.
Sure.
That's how it works, and then it's just about optimization. But what are some
Yeah.
of the optimizations you
Yeah.
think are
No,
important that you've seen?
a big one is alignment. And
Okay.
I would say alignment more more problems surface when there's a lack of alignment. And what I mean is, if you have sales out pitching something or marketing is telling people to pitch something. An example, we were going big with platform. We had data. We did a ton of research. Customers all want platform. The market and with the big research firms and tech were like, platform's the story. Like, great. So we're going to go big in platform. We have a platform now, it all integrated, and we pushed all the salespeople out with the platform narrative. It's great. Everybody loved it, except the pipeline wasn't moving and the bookings were slowing. And what happened was, what we found is everyone liked the idea of platform, but they had problems to solve in the immediate that then people were having to reconnect with where they were. So the sales teams were like, well, these are the problems that I'm dealing with. I'm pushing the platform. So we had to reorient the whole teams to kind of within discovery, figure out, well, what are their challenges? Let's start there and then we can pivot to platform. So we weren't having to mid cycle kind of reset everything with the customer and with sales. And again, it's alignment, it's understanding where they are in deals. And that's one of the biggest examples that I saw with just, we were getting to like stage 7 and then he would sit there and what's happening. And then we reset. And once we did, we were able to advance deals in a meaningful way. And that's really why you see the pipeline and the opportunities and how they progress. If you're not oriented around the customer's urgent need or risk, you're getting a ton of interest and maybe even pipeline, but it's not pipeline that's going to translate in 6 months to meaningful bookings.
Do you think it's better to have no activity in the funnel or to have a lot of tire kickers in the like, would you rather be wasting sales cycles on non-urgent,
Hmm.
unlikely to close, or just, sorry, we don't have anything happening in the pipeline right now with, what would you pick between those 2?
Well, I would pick both. If I had to, I'd rather have a lot of pipeline and then
Mm,
have good data that
mm,
that would identify again the traits that would signify where sales can spend their time. You always want in marketing enough tire kickers to engage with them and hopefully convert them over time. But if you kick it over to sales and then you're into tire kickers, you're going to have a really inefficient sales team. And so
mhm.
I think that's where the alignment and the data really does come into play because you need to understand what are the triggers, what's indicative of a customer that we've seen progress and what are they trying to do, and then you find those, and once you engage with them and understand their specific need, the opportunity, and we saw dramatic increases of win rate when we followed the right scripts. We saw a huge improvement in deal advancement win rates versus just let's let's fill the funnel and then send a bunch of stuff over to sales, which they can't convert. That's
Yeah,
just not helping anybody.
yeah. Okay, absolutely. Alright, I wanna talk a little bit about AI, and
Mhm.
so, the general trends, are anxiety, concern of job loss, this
Yep.
sense that everybody, um, especially high up in SaaS, I'm hearing a lot of, like, we need everybody to be
Yep.
using AI, need to everybody to be figuring out how to automate, find efficiency. There's it's just chaos.
Yep.
Like, we're
Yeah.
way behind on governance, we're way behind on, um, even, going back to cause and effect, understanding the impact of these things, like, going so far as to have people measuring the success of AI or AI adoption as, did you use all of your tokens, which is basically incentivizing people to, like, make your grocery list using our AI tools because, if you don't use all your tokens, you're in trouble. So, uh, talk to me about what AI is doing in the product marketing world?
It it has had a massive effect, and I think the the danger and what I saw early on was it people's interpretation of AI was let's add more. And let's just now we can do more campaigns, we can send out more emails, we can send out, more content, and we can do all this, and it's going to write really well, and we'll build these libraries of content. And the problem is, how do you respond when you get a bunch of email that's not related to actually what you're interested in? It's spam.
Like, you
And
and everybody else building
right.
out a massive library of random stuff.
And
It's
and so where we found effectiveness is if you overlay and you use AI not just as a production function, but if you can put it into the decisioning. And so if you can do the things we just talked about, where can you use it to get context? Can you use it to look at the data to predict and identify people that aren't the tire kickers? You want the people where it's ingrained in urgency. Like, can you identify, maybe you're doing something, there's a regulation change in California, and so you want to look at, wow, let's look at the healthcare. Let's look at this title. Let's look at what products they've got. And if you can filter that out, and then you can find, well, they kind of engaged with us in these areas. If you can do that and use AI to do that, and then leverage AI to do kind of more customized content, now you have an AI engine that is very effective. And it moves away from let's just add more to being smart about it. And I think it can be very effective, but it can't, if everyone's using it, you're not going to stand out at all. You're, it's going to just generic, and the most effective companies are just going to kind of water down their messaging and positioning to the lowest common denominator, and that's not going to be effective long term for them.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's, such a huge part of marketing is also about the competition. Like, how are you standing out? How are you different from other people? And if everybody is trying to churn out enough content to be all
Mhm.
things to everybody, it's just, yeah, it's just a mess. And well, now I don't even want a solution to this because I don't want to
Right.
deal with any of you, as
Right.
opposed to, yeah, finding clever ways to actually make a connection with
Mhm.
somebody that, gets their attention and some affinity towards you and your brand. And that's, ultimately the thing that can tip the scale when the time is right or when they have that urgency. So,
Mhm.
okay, awesome. Let's go ahead and wrap up there. Listeners, if
Sure.
you want to learn more about Rick, details will be in the show notes. Otherwise, Rick, thank you so much for joining me on Data Planet
Thank
today.
you. Really appreciate it.